Hi, I'm Norm Abram. Welcome to the new Yankee Workshop. Today we're going to build an improved version of a new Yankee classic. If you own a router or you're thinking about buying one, watch this. Seven years ago, we built this router table. I think it's one of the most useful tools here in the workshop next to the table saw. Thousands of you wrote to us, ordered the plans, and built your own. After 7 years, however, I think there are some improvements we can make to this classic. Starting down here, we can divide this drawer space into more segments. It gets too messed up. In time, we've acquired bits that are taller than the room that we allowed, so we need bigger bays there. We can improve the dust collection. We can get a switch that's less expensive and easier to find. We can use more common materials to make the top and the fence system. And we can get a better plate to support the router. Now let me show you what we've come up with. The overall dimensions are just about the same. Starting at the bottom, I've divided the space into 3 drawers. One deep one for any large accessories, and 2 smaller ones for the other router accessories. I made the lower bit storage bin an inch taller on each side to accommodate tall bits. And here's a big improvement. This plexi panel is now hinged rather than trying to get it into a slot. And I've changed the dust collection system here so that it'll be more efficient. Found a switch that's a lot less expensive. Made the top out of laminated MDF and high-pressure laminate, things that are easily available at any home center. We've also improved the hardware that we use to make fence adjustments so it slides more easily, and made the fence out of MDF so there'll be no twisting or warping. Dust collection comes right off the fence, joins up with the compartment down below, and then goes out through either our chip collection system, or you could actually hook this up to a shop vac. I want to start today on that top. I have a piece of 1/2 inch MDF and 3/4 inch MDF. I've laid out where I'm going to make the groove for the miter gauge track, the slots for the fence, and the hole for the router plate. I don't want any screws in that area. I'm going to pre-drill for a whole bunch of screws, open it up, clean it, spread some glue, and screw it back together. But before we use any power tools, let's talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. Okay, now I can separate the pieces. I cut the blanks 1/2 inch larger in each direction. I'll trim those up later. I just make sure there's no sawdust in between. Spread some glue. Put it back together. All right, now we'll line them up again, clamp it, and install some 1-inch screws. Okay, that takes care of sizing the top. For the last few minutes, I've been mitering some pieces of 1.25 inch oak to trim out the edge of the top. And with those fitted, I'll now lay out for some biscuit slots to hold it all in place. Every 8 to 10 inches on center should do. With glue in the slots of the medium density fiberboard and the oak, and the 2 long sides just clamped in place dry, I can now start to set the pieces. By having these pieces set dry, it's easier to align the joints. All right, now a little clamp pressure to hold them in place while the glue sets. Now I'll do the long ends. All right, we'll set that aside to dry for a while and start on the next part of the project, which will be the fence. And the first thing that I want to do is make this cutout in the vertical piece and this cutout in the horizontal piece. I've just chamfered the cutout in the horizontal piece. And that's so that the wood chips won't get hung up as they try to go out to the vac. With the aid of my tapering jig, I can remove this material at the back edge of the horizontal part of the fence. And that takes care of the angle that I want to remove on the vertical part of the fence. A couple holes on each side of the cutout. We'll need those later. I'm pre-drilling any holes for screws. Otherwise, it'll split the MDF. Before assembly, I'm easing all the sharp edges with a 1/4-inch radius router bit. Well, finally, we're ready to start putting it together. A little bit of glue on the joint between the horizontal and vertical pieces. Line them up, and I secure everything with 1 5/8" screws. And now the braces, which will keep the fence nice and square. And finally, these 3 little pieces, which will receive the dust collector later. Here I'm getting ready to glue the high-pressure laminate onto the assembled countertop. We put glue on the laminate and on the MDF. When they're tacky, we can stick them together. The contact cement is just tacky, and I've put these 3 spacer sticks down because if the high-pressure laminate touches the substrate too quickly, it's just going to stick wherever it lands. And I want to line it up first, a little bit of extra around each side. And I'll pull out this center one first. Let it drop down. And now I can pull out the end ones. And now I want to take this J-roller and start at the center of the piece and push towards the outer edges. This will remove any air bubbles and make sure that we have full contact. Using a flush cutting bit, which has a little ball bearing that rides against the oak edging, I'm able to trim the laminate flush. Now to ease the sharp corner right here at the edge, I'm just chamfering it. That'll make it less likely to catch. I'll also do the same thing on the bottom. That's the first of 2 cuts to make a slot for the T-bolts to secure the fence. This will recess the head and keep it from spinning as I tighten the fence down. All right, well, we have a few more steps to do on this top, and tomorrow we'll build the base for this cabinet. Well, good morning. I'm getting started today by completing that slot for the T-bolt. I made a wide slot for the head last night. Now I have a narrower slot where the threads go through, and this will hold the fence down. Now let's cut a hole for the router plate. Here on the underside, you can see where the router plate goes. I want to cut the through hole a 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch smaller. Well, now one of the more tricky parts of this project, which is to cut a very accurate hole for the plate. I don't want it to be sloppy. So I very carefully made a template which was 1/8 of an inch bigger all the way around than the actual plate itself. And that's to accommodate for the difference between the 3/4 inch diameter collar and the straight cutting bit. The next thing I want to do is cut a slot in the top to receive this aluminum track, which will allow me to use this hold down or a miter gauge. The easiest way to make that slot is with a couple passes through the dado. Okay, the track fits fine. Eventually I'll secure it with some screws. Now I want to drill some holes in each corner for these leveling screws. Now these things just screw in and you can adjust them as needed. Now you'll notice that these adjustable sections of the fence require a T-slot, and that starts with a dado. Now at our old router station, I've installed a special bit which will complete the slot. Now these just slide over those T-nuts and get tightened with some knobs in the back. This top piece does not move, and the T-track is used to control featherboards. The carcass is made up of 3/4 inch plywood panels. There's a cutting diagram in the plan that shows you how to cut all the pieces out of the full sheets. Here we've stripped the carcass of all the drawers. Now wherever there's a shelf that meets the side, there's a dado, this partition sits into dados, and there are rabbets. All of those are cut at the table saw. The sequence isn't important. That's your own personal preference. I'm going to start with a dado in the side panel for the bottom shelf. That's the notch for the toe kick. Now I'm ready to put in the partitions. Glue and screws is all I need. Now would be a good time to install the runners that support the drawers. And that's done over here. I have one on, a spacer, another one with a little glue, and some brads. Next is this partition, which divides the large drawers. Some more glue and screws. And here's the bottom shelf. Now it's time for the sides. Some more glue, and I'll clamp them in place. These blocks will support the toe kick. The toe kick slips into this dado and onto those blocks. Next, the front cleat, which ties the top edge together. With the back loosely installed, I'm going to mark for some biscuits to help reinforce the shelves. Now, it's a lot more complicated to put in these biscuits, but it makes the case a lot stronger. Now, any place the edge of the plywood shows, we're going to cover it with an oak strip. The trim pieces for the front are 3/4 of an inch thick, and these pieces are important because these are the heavy wear areas. To level the case on an uneven floor, I use a T-nut and then these little nylon guides. Let's look at the dust collection setup. I need to draw sawdust and chips from two locations, from inside this cabinet, which would come in this way, and from the fence, which would come in this way. Therefore, I have a plumbing T. 2-inch PVC, and then this connects to the dust collector. First thing I need to do is drill a hole in the back of the cabinet. I'm going to use some polyurethane glue to secure the stub in the hole. So I wet one surface, squeeze the glue onto the pipe, and then I'll just work it in there. It'll take a little while for it to set up. Now you notice that the inside of the pipe is almost flush with that shelf inside. That was deliberate. Now on the inside of the cabinet, I place this sloped piece of plywood so any dust that falls will slide down to the shelf, and if I tip that back, you can see that there's some angled pieces that'll funnel everything into that pipe. The original bit storage drawer worked just fine, so we repeated the design here. Same layout. There's a piece of 3/4-inch plywood with through holes and then a backer of 1/4-inch plywood. I want 4 drawers set up for 1/2-inch bits, so I've ganged 4 pieces of plywood together, and I'll just drill all the holes here at the drill press. And these are a couple shelves for the 1/4-inch shank bits. All the drawers need a 1/4-inch bottom, and all the sides need a 1/4-inch groove to receive it. So I've set up the dado to do that. The sides of the drawers need a dado to receive the back. So I've widened the dado, and we'll push them through using our miter gauge. While the dado is still set up, I'm going to make some rabbets in the fronts for the bit storage drawers. First, one on each edge. I need to make a wide rabbet at the bottom of the fronts for the bit storage drawers to receive the tray. That'll have to be made in 2 passes. Well, now it's just a matter of assembling the drawer parts. Where the sides meet the front, I'm going to use this tough polyurethane glue, and elsewhere I'll just use carpenter's glue. For the large drawers, I like to use these full extension drawer slides, which will support 100 pounds, more than I'll ever put in these drawers. Another look here at the prototype. Next we'll make the door. It's an oak frame, mitered at the corners with a groove to receive the plexi panel. Good. All right, well, tomorrow we'll complete the dust collection system, install the electricals, then take the piece into the paint shop to seal it up. This is almost ready for some action. These holes in our plexiglass door are for the makeup air for the dust collection system. Okay, now this is one of the best improvements to our router station. This hinged door is going to make it much easier to access this chamber. And a magnetic catch to hold it closed. Now let's work on the electrics. Let's take a look at the prototype. There's a surface-mounted switch with a hole where the 2 wires go into a chase. 1 wire goes out the back, which is the supply cord. There's a notch here for the router cord to come into the chase and plug into the switch. And here I have a shelf to separate